everyone. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to our live coffee talk. Those of you who are new to me, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, wherever you are. I'm Michelle Quay. I'm a confidence coach, and I am the host of the Visibility Confidence Lounge. Welcome to the show. So today, well, let me before we jump into what I have for you today, you're gonna want to know. We are running another Brave Your Story challenge very shortly. So I will share the link where you can sign up at the end of the episodes. And I would encourage you to come and join me on this challenge, because if you have a story and you want to create impact in other people's life, the most effective and more direct way of sharing that is actually by speaking about it. So if you are having a business, you want to grow your business, you want to be in front of your audience and make people aware of that your existence, then I would encourage you to consider signing up to the challenge. So I will have all that information for you at the end of the show and also at the end of the episode notes. So today, I am super excited because I connected with Jvonne during a very sensitive time in our society. It was during the Black Lives Matter. And during that time, there's a lot of cultural diversity and equality issues that had arisen. And I got this email that was popped into my inbox. And it was from Jvonne's friend who had decided to pitch to her story to me. Now, those of you who know that I have written a book, this is something that I was absolutely very afraid of doing for my own book. Pitching to someone, a stranger I have never seen in my life, and convincing them to invite me either to a book club, to talk about my book, or even to a show. So when I got that email in my inbox, I was super excited and inspired, because I know it took a lot of courage to be able to promote ourselves, to talk about ourselves, let alone pitching to a stranger who you have never seen in your life. So today, I want you to meet Jvonne Hubbard, a writer, published author, yoga and meditation teacher, a mother of 2 special needs children. Her memoir, White Sheets to Brown Babies, is available on Amazon.com. It is also free to download on Kindle Unlimited if you are a Kindle Unlimited user. It is also available on BarnesandNoble.com. There's something that you need to know about Jvonne. Her childhood was traumatic. Her upbringing, chaotic. Her journey, very unique. And without taking too much time from her, because I do want you to meet her and hear the story firsthand from the author of The White Sheet to Brown Baby. Without further ado, please join me with a warm welcome, Jvonne Hubbard. Hi, Jvonne.
Hi. Good to see you.
Welcome to the show.
I'm excited. Thank you for having me.
So where are you right now?
I'm in Tennessee, home of Dollywood. We're right here in the middle of Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg, and all the fun stuff to do in the mountains.
I love the mountain because there's something about nature that keep you very peaceful. And for some reason, every time I see the nature, it really reminds myself that life go through seasons. We all go through seasons.
Absolutely.
And I know you had a rough season in your childhood.
I sure did.
Rough is probably an understatement, because I actually read your book. And so rough is really an understatement. And I have the book right here. Just wanted to show everybody.
6-year-old me on the cover.
Yep,
my
right
father.
There.
Yeah, that's my father. He was the Grand Dragon of the Western North Carolina Ku Klux Klan when I was growing up, and convinced my mom to sew that little robe so he could parade me around at rallies and cross burnings and all kinds of crazy stuff that a 6-year-old can't really process. It's very terrifying. Very terrifying.
Yeah. What was it like growing up in that family?
I was scared a lot, like all the time, because my dad he was an alcoholic on top of having guns everywhere. There was a lot of gun violence. He'd get drunk and then he'd get angry and then he'd start up with the racism and the gun violence. And at a very young age, I saw things that a child shouldn't have to see. Example, he once had me lay down in the floorboard of the back seat of the family car, told my mom to hold the wheel, and next thing I hear is, just like gunfire. And of course, I popped up and looked out the back window, and my dad's shooting someone's car full of holes, just full of holes. And it's, anyway. And then a second time, he actually, same thing, lay down on the floorboard, mom take the wheel, and he's throwing like this glass bottle with a rag. I think they call it a Molotov cocktail, through someone's window. And I raise up and I see curtains catch on fire. And I hear back in the background of the adults talking that there was a white lady living there who had a black baby. And that was the purpose of that. And he did things like that. He did it under the cover of darkness at the time of night or morning that people are usually sleeping. And so trauma and chaos and violence was kind of just a thread from the time I was 6 till the time, they divorced when I was 10. And then, I didn't see him on a consistent basis, but he was still a part of my life. He was a part of my life until he died in 2016.
Did you have any siblings?
I have a half sister that came along when I was 11 years old after my mom and dad divorced, and she remarried, and dysfunction continued, as anyone who's read the book. It continued because when you grow up in that type of environment, which could be more than just decades long, because we're talking about a dysfunction that comes from somewhere. Where does hate come from? Hate is fear of something you don't know or you don't understand. Or hate is sometimes, I think, self-hatred that we can't deal with, that we don't have the self-awareness to even understand, gets poured forth through things like racism, because there's no good reason for something like that. There just isn't, because we're all human beings. We are all the same. We come into this world the same. We leave the world the same way. And so he could never, despite years of trying to indoctrinate me, he could not get me to see it that way. Mm-hmm. It just felt very uncomfortable to have to live with that stigma and go through the things I went through at home.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that a lot of time I talk about in this show is about love and courage and connection. Was there, I know this is something I can relate. Every time people ask me, hey, can you think back the time when you had the big car accident? And it's very painful to go back and think about that moment. So, what I'm asking here is also very painful. I'm sure it is for you to think back the time. Was love ever something that you knew in the family?
I love that question, because nobody's ever asked me that before. And you don't really get that snippet in the book. But I would say the first 5 years of my life, I was born of love. I was wanted, planned for, all that. My mom was a stay-at-home mom for the first 4 years of my life. And, my dad had a job. Everything seemed normal. And I think that because I was born of love and born into love, that I had an innate sense of love that I identify with, just something spiritual. You can call it God or whatever, you want to call it. But I think if it hadn't been for that being my intro into the world, I might have gotten lost in what happened next, because what happened next lasted from the time I was 6 till the time I was 25 years old, in terms of dysfunction, violence, repetitive cycles. Because, when we grow up in poverty, dysfunction, alcoholism, socioeconomically disadvantaged, and you have all that going on, everybody around you, your closest family, your closest relatives, the people that you are expected to live with, and they're all in that dysfunctional cycle together. To break away from that is very hard because you don't know anything else. You don't have anywhere else, and I think that's why such cycles of things like that repeat, because somebody's got to wake up to love, wake up to wanting something better, wake up to stopping the roller coaster and the merry-go-round of just dysfunction, and know that there is more to life than that. And you've got to snap out of it, pull yourself up out of it. That's what I have tried to do. And I'm 46 years old now.
And young and beautiful.
Thank you.
And beautiful in your heart. And when you are beautiful from the inside, you can tell that from the outside, because it really shows without any makeup that you need, without anything that you need. You just shine through. Your beauty just shine through. So I love that about you. And I also love the fact that you talked about love as something that it was something that we born into, or something that you recognize in the first 4 or 5 years of your life. And then what happened?
I wanted more of that.
Don't we all want more love?
Unfortunately, by the time I was 12, because as I mentioned, my mom and dad, when they divorced, when she and he were not living together day in and day out, she pretty much stopped looking after me. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, from the cover and from the first chapter, it's easy to think of my dad as the villain of the book.
Yeah.
But my mom was just as damaging. Her approach was just as damaging. In fact, I haven't gotten over that. I mean, I wrote a book and was able to finally, after death, forgive my father, but I haven't gotten that far with my mother. I'll be honest. It's, because I think we expect more of mothers, or we expect more, in terms of at least protecting us. And she didn't do that. And kind of when everything fell apart, and she continued, she was remarried twice after my dad. She had live-in boyfriends in between, and the dysfunction continued. It was always a man that was just like my dad. He was alcoholic. He was violent. He was, so she was perpetuating that. And that's what I grew up in until she abandoned me when I was 14 years old. She moved away, left a brown paper bag note on the door, and pretty much left me under the supervision of an older man I was 14, he was 44. And, there's a chapter in the book about what happened there. And it was sexual abuse. Yeah. And that was hard to write about. That was probably the hardest chapter to write about. I've been asked before, what was the hardest chapter? Well, because that's some deep and intimate and confusing things, and hard to relive when you're sitting there writing or talking about it. Mm-hmm. But where do you want me to go with this?
So I was going to ask you, as I was reading through it, there's a lot of chapter that's really, like you said, it's hard. And it was recalling a lot of detailed memories of what had happened. What inspires you to write the book?
My best friend and love of my life, Jim, the one who reached out to you, I've always written, whether it was keeping a journal or writing poetry. I love poetry. I love lyrical poetry. I love music. So I write lyrics a lot. And I'd done that as a way to cope. I think when I was little, I was like 12 years old when I started writing poetry and being a part of the school, journal and all that. But when he said, wow, your life has been crazy. Have you ever thought about writing a book? And I'm like, well, I'd like to write. I mean, if possible. So he just jumped on board, helped me. Like we got the Writers Market journal, the KDP self-publishing and Amazon. I mean, we just were researching everything, thinking what's the best way to put my story out there. And we decided to go with doing it ourselves because I didn't want to be told no. It was too important. It's my story. And now I'm going to share something that personal with the world, hoping that by sharing it, that a public that may not understand that type of life could glean some insight into the mind of people coming from that background, or people who are still stuck there could see that someone survived that and that you can get out and that you can do better. There was a lot of reasons, but I just, and I put a poem before every chapter. So I got my poetry in there.
You did. And I love how you open it up with each poetry.
Yes.
I loved it. And one of the things that you brought up for me is the fact that there's a lot of perception or the way people are thinking. And when I first saw the book title, White Sheets to Brown Baby, and it popped into my email during a very sensitive time. People were talking about the KKK. People were talking about discrimination and diversity and how that plays a role. And no one ever thought about, what is like to grow up in the family that focus on hate and discrimination and all that stuff. What does it feel like, or what kind of person is growing up from this type of family? And so when Jim reached out, I said, this is a perfect timing. And it was really timely how the universe just put all the pieces together. And look at you.
Here we are talking. It's a real thing, and all I know is that going forward is how I live. That's just, it's like, how did you overcome it? You have to keep going forward. And in trying to improve my life, the first step was getting away from that environment. And that meant cutting ties with family. That meant cutting ties with almost everybody that you're familiar with. I mean, because before it was over, before I got away from all that, I even ended up in prison, because the violence and the chaos and the destruction. And then after the sexual assault, I turned into a very angry teenager. And see, that's where some people get lost, in that anger, the anger of what's happened to you, the unfairness of it. Why was this my life? Why has this happened to me? I guess I felt sorry for myself as a teenage girl because I had no parents and I'm just out there on the street, and that anger took root for a long time as a coping mechanism, because anger is more useful than despair. I didn't want to sit around and cry about it. I didn't want to be the victim, so for a while I was out of balance in that regard. And that's where yoga and meditation, which I do as a private thing, it's a daily thing for me, but I also teach it. Tools like that, yoga, meditation, have helped me a great deal in moving forward and living in the moment, because it's in the moment that you have choice and you have choices to make. And it doesn't matter how scary they are, you can do it. That's kind of the message of the whole book. And I try to use humor. I've got a dark sense of humor. I
have a dark sense of humor too.
So there's dark humor in the book too. You have to lighten the mood because you're telling a very ugly story. And you're right. The climate in our world right now is so fraught with it. And that was disappointing. Yeah, it was timely, the conversation and the book and all that. Disappointing to me because you would think we'd moved past that, because all this happened in the 80s and here we are still dealing with things like racism and hate and that type of thing. And it's just, if anything escalated, it feels like, I don't know, because hate is exhausting. I say that in the book. I mean, because there's no peace. And peace is all, peace. I crave peace. I'm always trying to track it down. And hate, there's no peace to be had if you've got hate in your heart and your mind. Yeah, it just isn't.
There's something I always say, that hater always hate, and hater because they really haven't healed from their hate. No,
they haven't healed. And
so hurt people would hurt people. The hurt people don't know any better way of how to show up with love and show up with courage. So the only thing that they know is by anger, hate, or fear. These are the only thing that they know to, like, it's a self-protection to themselves, self-defensive mechanism that they're familiar with to go to. So I'm curious because I know there's a lot of like hate speech right now against the LTBGK. No, I totally screwed up with the pride, the whole pride movement.
Right. This is Pride Month, right? I think it's Pride Month.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean,
I'm probably getting screwed up the code, so please forgive me. I don't mean it. I'm like in the moment of trying to do all the technologies, but for the
LGBTQ.
There we go.
But yeah, I mean, because hey, I mean, that's the thing. And people who can't heal lash out at other people, and usually the only reason for it is they'll pick something they don't understand or something they're afraid of. You know, for me as a teenage girl, I was afraid of getting hurt again. And so I think that I would lash out sometimes in that self-protection way of, don't hurt me, I'll hurt you before you can hurt me, kind of thing, you know. And what's sad is that we don't have very good mental health here in the United States. And those people are just kind of left to try to figure things out on their own. And if they don't have the tools, you know, and they don't have the support, and they don't have, you know, it can just, like I say, repeat.
Like a snowball. It would just snowball into something else.
Until something drastic happens. And that's where we get these, you know, mass shootings or just violent outbursts in public. I mean, because they're built up, the compression of it, you know, and I don't know. There's no easy answer about what to do about that.
Yeah.
Because some people are indoctrinated, and the climate of the media doesn't help that either. I mean, there is real stuff happening every day, and then we hear about it, and it's just escalate. You know, I really wish there was just a good news channel.
Well, they do have the good news channel. You just need to follow us on Facebook. You can follow Jvonne on her Facebook, and you can check out her Facebook of White Sheets to Brown Babies on Facebook. It's at White Sheets to Brown Babies.
Yeah.
So I'm curious because you're also a meditation and yoga teacher. Yeah. Are there anything that you might be able to share for people who caught themselves in that moment of, you know, heated conversation or hate or fear? What would you advise them to do?
Well, physically, first take a deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. And never forget that we are all born into this world the same way. We leave the world the same way. And if you have compassion in your heart for your fellow man, you know, treat others as you would treat yourself. It's all golden rule type stuff, you know, but everybody has a voice and everybody has a journey that they've been on, and you don't know what someone else is going through. And I think that sometimes people get angry when they feel misunderstood or unheard. So when these types of conversations come up that are inflammatory, those are the things we need to keep in our mind, you know, and listen with an open mind and an open heart, and make others feel comfortable to do the same. And the way that I do that is I stay authentic. And I also have an authenticity page I'm working on Facebook, which is it's a place to get positive reflection. It's more the meditation part. Quieting your mind for 10 minutes at a time, a couple of times a day. Deep breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth. That's as simple as meditation can be. And I would advise people to just keep their minds open and their hearts open, and listen with a friendly ear and a compassionate heart, and try to have conversations that can take us towards real change. Because arguing doesn't bring any real change. It just gets tempers flared up. And when my temper gets flared up, which it does, because I've got post-traumatic stress disorder, and sometimes there are triggers, things that remind you of what you went through in the past, and it's you kind of get choked up on that. and your first response might be automatic, whatever you've used to reacting. And so if that's anger, that's where that deep breath comes in, because you catch yourself and give your mind time to think about, okay, how can I go forward in a peaceful way for resolution.
I love that. And I think, just giving yourself that permission to take a deep breath,
Yes.
authentic living. And you mentioned your Facebook group. I believe I'm actually in the group as well. It's called Authentic Living, correct?
Authenticity. And there's one Sakshi PA. Yes. So yoga, meditation. I'm constantly trying to use Facebook as a platform for positivity, because I think another thing that with all the technology and social media, that a lot of times there's a lot of lashing out goes on there too, and unnecessarily so. We can use things like that as a platform for good and positive things, like you do.
Yeah, so there it is, Facebook group Authenticity. If you go check her out, you can follow her, and she posts a lot of high energy, high vibration type of posting there. There's inspirational quotes that she posted. Definitely go check it out, because we all need to have that moment in our life where we said, let's do a timeout here and let's just think and pause. Yeah. So moving forward, I know you and I both focus on moving forward in our life.
Absolutely.
That the book is great. It told the world part of our really important and traumatic and chaotic past, but that is in the past.
Yes, it is.
Forward.
Yes. Moving forward.
What do you got cooking in your life right now?
Well, I am tentatively working on a second book called Scream from Quarantine.
Oh.
Kind of the evolution of the whole process of this past year, where everything kind of shut down. Wasn't able to keep an open practice, and we had to, just kind of go inward. And there was a lot of inward reflection going on. And I think maybe a lot of people couldn't cope with that. It's why everything got so explosive later. But the book will be about transformation, and like how the climate of everybody kind of, as I was watching the news and looking out into the world and the COVID stuff, and they're putting bodies in freezer trucks, and everybody's losing their mind, and they're climbing the Capitol building and stuff like that. It occurs to me that, wow, going back to the idea of anger or just aggression, I didn't want to be that person, not even for a minute. And I'm like, because it's not cool, it's not. And when you hurt other people with your actions, that's not cool. And so the book's about the evolution of an asshole, me. It's kind of like part 2, Scream from Quarantine, the things I learned even in this past year about myself, about health and wellness and all that. So it definitely will be a moving forward type book, where we leave the past behind us and we try to understand life in the moment now, and how to attain those goals. More uplifting, definitely. I'll include poetry again, because that's just my thing. And on the front of yoga and meditation, I have reopened my practice, Sakshi PA. And I have a studio here in Tennessee for private instruction. And I'm hoping to launch either a YouTube or some sort of live stream yoga class, where I can get more people involved online, instead of having to actually visit the brick and mortar studio. So I'm just going to move forward with yoga and meditation and the second book, and hopefully continue to spread a message of positivity and peace and love, and because I do believe that's the answer, and to everything. And I know it's not easy. It's a hard road. You and I wrote a book. We both got a book about what a hard road it is. Right. We've all got a story inside of us. We've all got a path that we're on, and we need to be more considerate of others as we go down that path.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, so one of the things I always encourage people to do is actually think about doing it live, maybe even on your Facebook group, you know. So like maybe do a live yoga moment in your
Yes.
Facebook group and invite people to come and join you and do yoga. And that would be a great way of getting people into the group and also helping more people and reaching more people.
Yes.
And that's always important, something that, you know, is always dear to my heart. How do I find ways to help more people? And I'm sure this is, you know, what's on your mind too,
Yes.
moving forward by writing that book. And, you know, there's a saying that goes, if you're going to be a smart ass, make sure you are smart. Otherwise, you're just being an ass.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. You get it. You get it.
Yeah. So just make sure we're smart ass about all the things. Otherwise, we're just being an ass.
Exactly.
Jvonne, I can talk to you for hours and hours nonstop, but you know, I do wanted to first of all thank you coming to the show. I had a great time reading your book. Again, the book is called White Sheets to Brown Baby. Those of you who are interested, make sure to pick it up on Barnes and Noble or Amazon.com. And then I really look forward to your next book because I think that's really something that I would want to read because I know during the pandemic there's a lot of things happening and now people are lashing it out like everywhere that you see.
And like you say about the doing things online, I mean, you know, we saw how everything kind of had to go that way. Even talk shows and TV and movies stopped, you know, so definitely need to learn how to live stream some yoga.
I can show you some tips, you know. We'll talk later.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much for coming. I really enjoy everything and your life. It's just an amazing story, very inspiring and very amazing. So thank you so much for coming.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. All right, everybody. So thank you so much for watching Wednesday Live Coffee Talk. Again, we are running another 5-day Brave Your Story challenge. So I will have all the information in the link below and you can sign up. Right now, I am offering a bonus. So go check out the landing page and I will see you at the challenge. Bye.